Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Morning. So, hope the audio is clear, visible.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you. So, we are going to start in a minute. I think still people are joining, about 50 plus, and just a few more are yet to join. We'll wait for a minute and then start off our proceedings. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our series of webinars. So, today we have industry perspectives on actuarial careers. This is one of the very important topics for everyone. So we request all of you to take proper notes, or if you have any questions, you please feel free to ask at the end of the session. And also, if there are any thing you want to make a point, we really want to have that discussion. Maybe we will extend beyond 10 if you have any specific questions, but like 9 to 10, we really want to have a very intense session where actually you will receive great insights and inputs from the experts who are joining today. Okay. So the very first thing that we want to do is we welcome all our panel experts who are here from India and abroad. Both of all are actually they are experts in actuarial data science areas, and their expertise is gained over a period of many years, and they are hands-on people, unlike those who you find many talking, but like actually there are very few who are doing and talking. Okay, so this is that type of group. So where actually they're actually doing and then contributing a lot to the society. So this is where I see there's a great value and there's a great uh, power in those words which are actually doing action as and then they are saying. So that is where actually we found this set of people coming in our way, and so we requested them to be part of it today. So let me first introduce. We have Pranav Sai, doctor. He's the doctorate in actuarial data science. So currently he is in Dublin, Ireland. So he's joining us. He's joining us at 4:30 a.m. and from Dublin. So welcome, Pranav. So we're happy to have you on this webinar. So this is a thing which actually helps multiple ways. So your experience with in European market, particularly, that will help all the students to see where the actual profession and the jobs and the transformation is happening. Okay, so we have Fani Krishna Kandala. So he's joining us from Singapore. So he's MTech in computer science, and then actuarial. So he went the path of actuarial after going through the technology part of the education. So he is another expert, and who is currently serving as vice president in Swiss Re. So his expertise is going to bring us. He worked in multiple geographies. He worked in Europe. He worked in Australia. He is currently working in Asia Pacific, Singapore. So, and he worked in India. So everything is relevant for India anyway because of the market that is growing. Then we have Dr. Rohan Eshraj Gupta. So Rohan, you all know, like other day, we had a session for interns and the summer course students also. Dr. Rohan is PhD in actuarial data science, and he is a speaker at various international forums, be it GCA or IFOA India seminar, or the CAS annual meet, and the insurance data science seminar, which happens. Even Pranav was also part of a speaker there. So it's a great privilege to have all our group of people here. And we have uh, Mahadev Suresh. So Mahadev Suresh is currently working at Swiss Re. He's a fellow of Institute of Actuaries, and he's greatly involved in multiple things. So this is the panel we have. So we start with our discussion today. And from our end, we look forward for your expertise and insights in various aspects of the industry perspectives on actuarial careers. So we'll start with Pranav, and then we go on. So Pranav, so over to you. So if you can give your point of view on this topic broadly, and then we move on to each one of you and then come back. Right. Perfect. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Hello, all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, from wherever you are attending. First of all, you can hear me, right? I assume that you can hear me. Yeah, thank you.
It's very good.
So, welcome to the webinar. Nice to see you all on a Sunday morning. I'm Pranav. I'm a PhD, as I was saying, in actuarial science, and I've been working as a as a principal data scientist in this consulting firm called Slalom. And I started my career basically, like, if I put it in a single line, right, my career followed a single theme. It's the theme is how can we enhance the operational efficiency of insurance business by bringing in technology, data science, new perspectives, right? And I did not choose this theme. The theme chose me, perhaps in my master's thesis, I guess. Like, this theme was given to me by my supervisor, and then I continued my PhD in that. And coincidentally, or like, for good, like, wherever I've been working, this theme had followed me all along. I started my career with Swiss Re Global as a reinsurance actuary. But before that, I was doing my PhD as well. My PhD was also in the similar topic. And when I joined Swiss Re as an experienced actuary in the life team, again, my role was like, okay, they were following some a process which was rather manual. They were using this programming language called SAS. I don't know how many of you know that. And then it's a combination of SAS and Excel, right? And it was taking significantly a large amount of time for them to do their calculations. And when I was hired, they wanted somebody to lift and shift this entire process out of SAS to R. And all these were pre-chat GPT era, which I'm talking about. So if you're going to translate from one language to another, it was considered a big thing back then. And so that's how I was involved in Swiss Re, right? And then I later moved to Ireland to Deloitte. And when I joined Deloitte, it was an actuarial modeling center. Again, it was the same theme, right? I was hired in an audit space, you would be knowing few audit frameworks like IFRS 17, US GAAP, Solvency 2, and all, right? And these are like massive reports which companies have to produce on a quarterly basis. And Deloitte was already doing audit for them. But the companies, when they're going to generate these reports, right, this is again a fairly manual task. I'm talking about Excel sheets that run like what 250 MBs. For you to even open that Excel workbook, you have to plug in your laptop, close all your background tasks. Only then the Excel would even load, right? And this is what they were doing. And they wanted somebody to lift and shift in Python for few teams, R in few teams, or some teams were so technologically a little backward that we had to do it in VBA for them within Excel, right? At least some sort of automation that was available. And this is what I'm doing for that. And then later I shifted to a health insurance company. Again, wherein, I'm trying to say all these is because I just wanted to give you a quick perspective of where the world is heading, right? Now, once I came out of Deloitte, all these cloud-based solutions in insurance started booming. Like cloud-based solutions, I mean Snowflake, I mean AWS, I mean Azure, Databricks. So these are like cloud-based solutions that are there, wherein the cloud, instead of you storing the data locally, you store it in cloud, and then you have these virtual computes, and we can play around with the data, everything in a given governance framework, right? And so this health insurer, they were all in Snowflake, and the data was there. And the problem with these insurance companies, it's like you can call it as a middle market when it comes to technology adoption, right, compared to other industries. So they were paying a lot for Snowflake, but they wanted somebody to use these features, right? You are paying so many millions of dollars, but you wanted to use whatever features they have, and that's how I was brought in. And I was trying to build a connector between Snowflake and Python, and we can build these front-end apps in Python using this package called Streamlit. And they wanted this as an internal tool for them to automate all these manual processes from Excel, and also hosted on Snowflake, right? And that was for a brief stint I was there. And then I joined this firm called Slalom. And here we this is a partner firm with all these cloud providers, which I'm talking about, right? And most of my work in the past have been involved with AWS and in Databricks, all in insurance space as domain, right? And the last few years, I've been working fully in Databricks. Databricks is again a competition to Snowflake, and then these guys build in their own agents, their own governance framework, and all. And my involvement again comes in the fact that they wanted somebody who knew insurance, who can speak the language of an actuary, but who can also develop in Databricks, right? So that's where I could fit, and we can talk more about that later as well. But in Databricks now, it has launched a new solution called Agentbricks, right? And nobody even has access to it. But some of the clients which I work with, they are platinum members, and they know, and nobody knows, right? Like there is no best practice that are there. We can't look up to other, peers what they are doing, and you want to build everything from scratch, right? And that's where I was brought in. They wanted to rapidly productionize whatever feature that was coming in Databricks. It is so fastly evolving that the work which I was doing 6 months back is no longer relevant now. Imagine. So that's the speed at which we are going. While this is happening, we also have within the same companies, there are some actuarial pensions team that sit out of Excel as well. So it's like a mixture of and this is where I've been involved in. Yeah. Hope to talk, continue the conversation further later. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Nice, actually. Good overview where it is leading. So whatever you were doing 6 months back, and that becomes actually somewhat irrelevant after a few months. So that's the way actually the profession or the actuarial work is moving in some of the companies. And not all companies are like that, but they may have to adapt the speed at which actually it needs to go at a later point of time. They are not adapting now. So now I invite Fani Krishna Kandala to provide his point of view and his background for the next few minutes. Yeah, over to you.
Hi, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hi, all. Thanks, Pranav, actually, for sharing your views. And thank you, sir, actually, for giving me this opportunity to talk on this. Okay. So for me, I'll actually talk through my journey, okay, and then through the journey, actually, we'll take a couple of examples, okay. In relation to actuarial data science, there are three aspects what we need to always remember. One is technical aspects of it, okay, where we are learning the technical, or we are actually trying to satisfy our technical urge. And the other thing is basically the business in which we are getting involved. The third aspect is the communication in which the audience to which we are communicating these particular results. So if we try to see in these three pillars, okay, so I'll start with technical urge, where I started in my first role, actually 14 years back, working on as a reserving actuary. I started with a graduate program with one of the major insurance company, the leading insurance company that time. And then I started as a reserving actuary. Essentially, we were trying to estimate what should be the claims, what should be the ultimate claim amount, okay, which the insurance companies would pay, and how thereby do we have that kind of a fund available to pay, and whether the premiums what we are charging is adequate enough or not. So that was my focus for the first couple of years. And I was working across all lines of business. And fortunately, with this particular actuarial science, and then my background towards computer science masters helped me to get more experience and contribute more and learn more in the first initial years. Then I moved on to a new role because I was there in the graduate program. I have got an opportunity to rotate within the within various departments in the company. So the next department, what happened as a rotation was more on the risk management, especially on finding what is the risk associated with not being paid, or markets not being stable, or internally if there are fraudulent activities which are happening, okay. And then that happened to be one of the areas where we had spent an extensive research time also, from academia, as well as from the company perspective. So that is the next area what I started working upon, and that was another revealing thing about how macro and micro aspects would be there, will impact the company, okay. So this is the second aspect of my technical urge, and thereby the techniques required to really explore this area was also very interesting for me. So we used statistical techniques, we used mathematical aspects, we tried to go through different ways in which the business gets impacted from a risk management perspective, and how frauds can happen, and how much we can quantify the fraud, and how much we could not quantify the fraud. So this is one aspect of the risk management journey what I had gone through. The second aspect of the risk management journey what I had gone through was more on basically asset liability management. So whether my liabilities and assets have got equal match, or were they a mismatch. If there is a mismatch, as we know that if we have got $100 today, we'll just try to go and invest, or we need to actually place it with us. So how much can we place with us, and how much can we actually invest? And through the investment return, is it adequate enough? Will it be there on exact time when I am supposed to pay my liabilities? So that is the second role what I had explored through. And in terms of technical aspects, it is more actuarial techniques what we have used till date, okay, when it was 15 years back. And we were slowly getting introduced into a software called SAS. And that like 14-15 years back, Excel, SAS, there is a slight advancement towards SAS, because it could handle more amount of data related to Excel. So that was the initial transformation what happened. So then I moved on to Europe, okay, moving into mature markets from the emerging market. And then I became a pricing actuary there. And then I was working on creating a parallel environment for a commercial actuarial software called Towers Watson, Emblem, and Radar. So they used to essentially be pricing the risks from a personal lines perspective, which is like using advanced statistics like generalized linear modeling, gradient boosting, and then trying to come up with a technical price or the risk price, what we used to call it as. I had to develop a parallel platform for the commercial software on an open source platform. So that was another piece where I was heavily involved and working with them, and always talking to the marketing team or the front end team who's selling this product, and then trying to understand the nuances and the difficulties what they were facing, and then trying to solve those problems was one of my most important role in the mature market. Okay. So that was my third or fourth role, what I was doing. And in parallel to this, I started utilizing my data science skills to automate stuff. Okay, what can be done, because it is a mammoth task when you have got a company of a large company which has got legacy systems. Ensuring that we transform in a very effective way was one of my key KPIs, key performance indicators that time, and I used to utilize the actual data science techniques. Then there comes the data science techniques where I started utilizing more on that role. Thereafter, I moved into another company after 6 years with that company across EMEA and APAC. I moved into a new company called the current company where I was working, called Swiss Re, which is a reinsurance company which gives insurance to insurance companies, a capacity provider. So what we used to do again is to see a long tail liabilities, okay, and then trying to estimate those long tail liabilities. What do we mean by long tail liabilities is the kind of claims which come is basically, or the claims which run is for a long time. For 10 years, 15 years, 30 years, 40 years. Okay. What should be the estimation of these kind of liabilities, or how much should I pay from my pocket? Okay. 10 years later from here. So, which is more complicated than the usual short tail risks what we used to see. So, so this is one of the very interesting ones where we need to utilize a combination of actuarial data science as well as mathematical statistical aspects of it, very deep into each of the subject, understanding the domain, understanding the profession in which we are trying to give this particular insurance related risks as well as reinsurance related risks is a very intellectually satisfying thing. This helped me to explore more on trying to go front end. So what I did was I moved from a technical role into a front end role, talking to each of the businesses from a CXO perspective. So I became a deputy lead of a couple of markets from Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and China that time. Okay, and then I used to work very closely with these areas, talking to the insurance companies, reinsurance managers, their CFOs and CEOs, trying to understand their problems, understand where they require support, and trying to give that support adequately from the technical knowledge what we have got. So this is very important. So this translates to the second pillar. What I'm talking about is understanding the business and trying to use appropriate techniques for that particular business. For example, I cannot use like the techniques what we learn. One of the suggestions which come out of this conversation is you will learn different techniques or different data science skills and aspects of actuarial science in this particular journey. But one thing what we always should remember is utilizing those skills. We will not use each and every skill what we have learned in all the scenarios. Each scenario will be customized to a particular skill what you learn. So understanding that particular piece through business and communication is very important. So thereby, after working at that particular role for a significant amount of time, I started leading that particular thing from an APAC perspective. Thereby, I moved towards Singapore, where I work with Korea, Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, India on this particular sector. And then now I work basically as a lead actuary for this entire unit, as well as like leading lead underwriter for a couple of markets within this, doing more a communication, a leadership management, as well as ensuring that this problem solving skills is imparted to the team, as well as solving the problem for the clients is my primary KPI now. Okay. So all through this particular piece, AI has been the new dimension in which we are working very closely, trying to build different bots for each of the companies, as well as trying to internally ensure that we are aligned with building operational rigor, okay, within the company too. So that's what I'm working on now. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, great, funny, so very informative. And so we move on to Dr. Rohan Eshraj Gupta. So you're very familiar with him, but like you may not know the complete journey of his actual thing, and then how it is evolving along with the industry, right? So Rohan, over to you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Before I begin, I'd like to just get a little sense of what kind of audience we have today. So I see there are more than 20 of us who have joined today. So probably by a raise of hand, can you all indicate which of you are students right now? So there is, so that's good. So 14, 15.
No, it's going up 41 plus.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're still rising. Okay, so 40,
45,
45,
and there are few on YouTube.
and there are few on YouTube. Good. So 75 people that we have today. So 45 of us are students. So which is actually very good. So what I'd like to do is, keeping that in mind, so now that I understand the audience better, so what I'd like to do is, so over the last 8 years of my experience working in the industry, you know, how I have seen the industry evolve. So that is one thing which I'll cover. The other thing is what are the expectations in the industry, right? So as someone with who's going to work in the actuarial career, what are the key industry expectations that the employers are looking for? Then I'll also touch upon a little bit about the exams and touch briefly on what is technology and how is it reshaping our profession. And lastly, the fifth point being the career from the career progression perspective, right? So yeah, so from an industry standpoint, so actuarial career has evolved significantly, I would say. Traditionally, actuaries were seen working at a back office where, they were seen as number crunchers, mostly focusing mainly on aspects like pricing and reserving in the insurance domain. But that perception is changing very rapidly, and it's also getting outdated very rapidly. So today you will see actuaries working, increasingly in the positions of strategic advisors. So we are expected to influence business decision and not just validate them, right? So we are no longer those employees of the company who are sitting at the back office and then just crunching numbers. So just to briefly touch upon, like say for example, in the general insurance industry, for example, involved in pricing strategies, risk management, capital management, or even product innovation and product design. When you're talking from the life insurance perspective, the focus expands into things like long-term risk management, embedded value calculations, regulatory frameworks, and various others. But beyond general insurance and life insurance, you would also find in today's world actuaries working. Things are now being applied into domains like consulting, data science, fintech, climate risk, and the work is endless. Where you are seeing the skills of actual science getting expanded. The second thing is, like from the industry expectations, what is it that the industry is expecting in today's world from their actuary? So one thing which is there is the business awareness, and the second thing that the industry expects is a communication. So talking about business awareness, so it is no longer enough for us to just build technically correct models. While it is important, it's not enough anymore. You need to be able to understand what the model means in terms of profitability, in terms of growth, and competitive positioning, because that is what that those are the perspective, those are the insights which is higher management perspective, right? So the best actuaries are those who can actually translate the technical outputs, the ones which we are getting from the model, into a more clear business action. And the second industry expectation is communication. So communication is, I would say, the most essential foundation on which our entire career is going to be based upon. So in practice, your audience is rarely going to be an actuary, right? So when you're working closely with the business, rarely would you interact, once you are getting into a higher and higher position, rarely would you interact with an actuary, but more you will start interacting with a more cross-functional group of people, stakeholders. So you would often be explaining your results to underwriters, you'll be explaining your results to finance teams, to senior management, and the ability to simplify complex idea without losing accuracy is a very key aspect. So the third thing is the exam, right? Because that's the big part of our journey. So it recognizes the rigor of the actual exam, but it also values balance. So balance in what, right? So passing exam quickly is beneficial, but it is not at the cost of so employers are increasingly looking for candidates who can apply concepts and not just clear papers. While clearing papers is essential, but it's not it in today's world, because there is so much of competition that has happened. There's so much of competition even in the actual domain, which already is a niche domain, but even in the actual domain, we will find there's so much of competition. So in today's world, as a actuarial student, it is no longer enough for you to just clear exams, but that extra edge. And how can that extra edge come from? That extra edge can come from attending various webinars, attending various conferences, networking, doing some live projects, doing some internships. So those are some things which you need to keep in mind. The fourth thing is technology, right? So like how technology is reshaping all the industries across the world, technology is also greatly reshaping our profession, the actual profession. So tools like Python and R and advanced analytic platform are becoming a standard, right? That's like something which is expected that you would know in today's world. So actually, who can combine traditional skills with data science capabilities are especially valuable in today's world. However, it is important to remember tool changes, but the core actuarial thinking remains the foundation. So you need to be good at whatever skills that you have developed through the exams and learning, but at the same tools that we have at a given time, you need to be equipped enough, knowledgeable enough to be able to implement those tools in your actual work. And then final point, which is the career progression. From the career progression perspective, the path is not linear, I would say, right? Which was once the case, but in today's world, the path is not linear. Um, Earlier, most actuaries follow a structured trajectory into the insurance companies, right? But today, there is much more flexibility. You can work across roles, across industries, you can even work across geographies, right? As two of our panel members previously mentioned. So this creates both opportunity and responsibility for you. So career rather than just follow the predefined path, right? So there is so much that the actual profession has to offer. So it all depends on us how we are making the best out of it. And yeah, that's it. So that's all from. So let us take this discussion forward and then see if any one of you have any questions. And yeah, we can make it really engaging.
Yeah, perfect, Ron. That's nice, very useful. So now we request Mahadev Suresh to give his perspective on how it is changing for him, actually, his point of view, the type of work he was doing, when he changed the line of business from in his point of view. And also he accomplished his fellowship, started early and then maintained the momentum and then accomplished it. So over to you, Mahadev. Your point of view on this subject.
Yes, thank you, sir. Um, so yeah, you've already heard um, panelists talk about how their careers have developed over time. Maybe I can try and take you through what I have done so far. As I said, I started out with life reinsurance. So here I was essentially trying to see for the business that was already returned by the company that I work for, uh, how profitable it is over time. So this is just seeing how the actual experience uh, emerges and then comparing it to how we had expected it while writing the business. So now, since it's life insurance, business has returned for like at least a decade and above always. And which is why a long-term monitoring of the health of the business that we write is important. So yeah, so my first role was along these lines. This is what I essentially did. Um, so here I had to work with multiple teams. So it's essentially looking at how the health of the business, right? So you work with pricing team, the reserving team, or the valuation team in this case, and also the portfolio managers who look at the thing at a much more high and overarching level. And also early in my career, once I started working, COVID had hit. And during COVID, as you'd have expected, and the mortality or the number of deaths in most populations increased. Um, so on on this account, we had returned a good amount of business in aging markets like Japan, which was particularly adversely affected by this sort of a thing, by the COVID pandemic essentially, and all the second order and third order effects that led to higher deaths in the subsequent years. So so as part of my role, I was involved in looking at mortality business that we wrote in Japan, and then trying to see if the reserves that we have in place, if they're enough or not, and if they're not enough, how much should we bump it up by? So so in this project, I mean, this was post ChatGPT era, so I had to do a lot of research, find good publications and decent medical journals which looked into this aspect in Japan and in other countries. So there's research, ability to prompt well. I mean, that did come in handy. But at the end of the day, for my analysis, it was essentially statistical techniques like a Lee Carter model that's used to project mortality into future. So that sort of stuff came in very handy. And yeah, okay. If I keep all of this apart, there's also the business understanding in the sense of knowing the market, how COVID, like what sort of lockdowns were imposed. So having in-depth knowledge of the market, of the country that you're working for, that also came in like quite handy, quite crucial. And at the end of the day, once you do the research, you have your findings, you have to present it to all the key decision makers, like the head of the market, and so on and so forth. And that I think all the work you do, shows up in the end moments where you have to present it to decision makers and what they take away from what you've presented. I mean, so in this case, it went all right. Uh, we had decided to increase our reserves, and essentially, everything was okay. So that's where I understood that communicating with your teammates versus communicating to people who actually make decisions, it's not the same. It's different. The level of gravity is much higher over there. Um, this was my initial experience while working for like a life part of the reinsurance industry. So after 2.5, 3 years, I also changed lines from life to PNC. So I'll be very honest here. Switching lines was not super easy in the sense that I had a few years of experience in life, and generally at that level, when they try to hire early career with a few years, they would want you to have some experience in the domain that you're trying to look a role for. So in this case, yeah, what helped me was trying to see what I've done, what is probably useful in the new role I'd be moving on to, and then writing my CV while talking to hiring managers, presenting things in a manner. It's not about what the role can give me; it's about what I can bring to the role. That sort of a thing. And yeah, so and the company that I work for, they encourage working in different departments, making these switches. So yeah, I was able to find a hiring manager who's willing to permit me to, make this particular switch. And then I've been with the team for 1.5 years now. And so earlier, like I said, so before this role, it was live, and I was looking into how portfolios experience emerge. Now I work in liability lines, long tail, mainly in EMEA and a little bit APAC as well. Um, and here so now moving on from experience, now currently I try to price these risks that come in, and then see, okay, so if this is the coverage we provide, how much should we charge for it, or how much at least it would cost us to provide this sort of a coverage. And even here, it's not the standard stuff. It's a little quirky and on the side interesting. So it could be something like motor liability for racing events, liability on the account of cars. So if there's some damage to property, hurt to people. So pricing those sorts of coverage. There's also own damage coverage, so standard car insurance, but then doing it for luxury vehicles, the costly ones, your BMWs, Mercedes, Audi, that sort of thing. And yeah, this is interesting work. It's non-standard work. And yeah, here, mostly what we mostly use is ability to research, have clarity on what the coverage is, then the statistical techniques, actuarial techniques. So all of your distributions that you learn in your first paper, that's quite practically used here. And at the end, of course, communication, because you'll be communicating just to either desk heads or senior underwriters. And yeah, so this is what my journey has been like so far. And the key, learnings from that as well.
That's excellent, Mahadev. So very nice. So Mahadev is actually moving in a stable way with the market moving from one to the other line, and so making most of it. So this as a background of each one of the panelists that we have, whose expertise is in various aspects. So like to ask, bring up few important questions, which actually maybe will go with a specific way of doing things. Okay, means like this question I'd like to ask Pranav, Dr. Pranav Sai. So for a student targeting first actuarial role, like today if they want to do, right? When you were like 5 years back, 7 years back, it was a very different thing. Now, if a person is looking for their first actuarial role, what are the top 2 to 3 skills or experience they should have before they for them to stand out and then get selected for that? What is that they should have from their side to get attracted?
Yes, thank you, sir. So we keep hiring graduates, and or we used to in our previous companies. So there is a certain set of skills that were coming with us really, on a regular basis, right? Firstly, you're in actuarial science. There is no other substitute for the number of papers you have. That's the bottom line. Everything else sits on top of this. We need to get that clear, right? And again, why we have to just ask ourselves this question: why we chose actuarial science, right? Out of all the different reasons, it's interesting. There's that blah blah. One of the main reasons why you would have chosen is not many are doing it. It's a game of supply and demand, and here we have to try to see there might be, say, thousands of people who would have cleared one exam, right? That number would substantially decrease if you're looking at people who have completed 2 exams, for example. Then that number keeps decreasing, 3, 4, 5, 6. So firstly, we have to clear as many exams as possible as an actuary, because we are applying as an actuarial role. And then secondly, see, again, this might not be, especially when you're looking for a first role, right? It might not be as interesting or as, it might not be ticking all the boxes which you have in your mind. But if you're looking for a particular domain, if you want to go into audit or if you want to go into data science, I can talk a little more about data science as well, right? It's about, okay, now we are having actuaries who have completed 5 to 6 roles now. How are you going to differentiate them with you, right? That's where all these additional skills would come into picture. Whether can you program, right, in Python or R. Like previously, multiple languages would have been better, but at least in ChatGPT era, we need at least one programming language, which you might need to be comfortable. Even okay, if the code is given to you, you can run the code and you can even analyze the code. That's like the starting point, right? That is one. The second thing is, it's not about you building now. Nobody would be expecting you to build everything from scratch. Architecture or a system would already be there for you, right? They might like to look out for your experience or familiarity with those. Like, for example, when I was hiring for Aon a couple of years back, the thing they were looking for is somebody who knew PySpark, because the client builds all their actuarial models in PySpark because it's a property-based clients, and their minimum data count is like perhaps 50 million rows. That's like the minimum. Imagine larger clients would go to even billion rows. Now, these can't sit out of Excel or in Python, right? You need PySpark for that. So it depends on role, but at least what we might try to prepare ourselves, right? We are not preparing ourselves for every possible role that's available, but a few set which might interest us. So try to clear as many exams as possible. Try to have expertise on, because now programming is going to be like how 20 years back, every actuary should know Excel. Knowing Excel was not an extra skill. It's like a necessity, right? So you might need to know a little bit of programming, any language of your choice, Python or R, whatever. And also a few additional add-ons that might be nice is these tools like Power BI, for example. Can you build a dashboard? Can you communicate, as Mahadev was also saying, right? Can you communicate the results in a more effective way? Perhaps dashboarding is really good. Can you build something in, say in Tableau, Power BI, or if you want to do it in R Shiny or Streamlit in Python, right? That's one. And a really, really good additional advantage might be if you have, it's more like a cherry on the cake would be if you have some practical exposure to all these cloud-based platforms, which I told, Databricks, Snowflake, or something like that. So it's something like if a company would be like, okay, yeah, this person has cleared 5 to 6 papers, check. Now, okay, they know Python. Oh, okay, yeah, PySpark. Okay, I want more check. Oh, they have done they have done some internships or projects in Databricks and Snowflake. Check. So it's they can seamlessly integrate into our environment well, right? And that's what companies will look for. More, the better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. So that helps those who are actually looking for their first job. Either say some of the students are in their final year, and so they have time to prepare, right? What next they can do, and the internship that actually 90 plus students who are doing with us also is a good what you call it reflects how much interest is there among students. Like we got about 471 plus applications so from 100 different colleges, right? So it's a massive interest people have in this. So just to move forward from here, I want to ask one more question to Dr. Rohan Yashraj Gupta, which is related to how should students choose between actuarial domains, like we have life, general insurance, health, pensions, consulting, So there are quite a few. Some more are there, some startups, people are actually, they're joining there, And also how with AI automation, transformation that is happening in the actual question, how students should prepare differently compared to 5 years ago?
Yeah, sure. I guess that's a very relevant question, because this is one question which I believe many of the students will have. You'll keep hearing about, so one very first question as a student, once you are stepping out in the actuarial career, the very first question which you'll have to make a choice on is between, whether you want to get into life domain, whether you want to get into general insurance domain, you want to get into pensions domain. Like, how do you make that choice, right? So what I can suggest is, the best approach would be to focus on the nature of the work rather than the domain as such. So what I mean by the nature of the work is, for example, GI, right? So GI is a more short term and it's a more data driven kind of work, right? So if you are a kind of person who is more into data science, who is more into programming, and then you want to apply those skills into a field which would give you that revenue, then GI would be a better choice, right? So life, on the other hand, is a more long term and valuation heavy kind of role. So, and consulting again is broader, and it's the one where you have you interact more with the stakeholders and things like that. So if you find that interacting with stakeholders and then working on longer terms of business, those are the kind of thing that interests you, then potentially life insurance would be a better choice for you. But nevertheless, as a student, even after you make a choice, let's say you graduated from your college, you make a choice, you join life insurance, then after a couple of years you find that the world around you is evolving, your friends and peers might be doing something which you are finding very interesting, but then if you're not able to find that work in your domain, and then the only those kind of work you are finding it in the GI domain, then that avenue is still there, especially in the earlier phase of your career, right? So you still have an option. So it's not like that once you make a choice then you are stuck with it. So like how Mahadev said, right? So he had started working with the life insurance domain, though the switch was not easy. He was able to find a appropriate path, and then he was able to make the transition because he felt that the kind of skills which is relevant to him, whatever he wants to do in the future, that aligns better with GI industry. So what I can say is, like, in a nutshell, if you are making a choice between the actuarial domain, the best approach would be to identify where exactly your interests and your acumen lies, and then make a choice initially. And then gradually, once you start working, once you start understanding the nature of work, once you start talking to people, once you start networking, because you'd also, I'm assuming, once you are in the industry, you'll start attending lots of conferences, you'll start networking better, you'll start understanding the nature of work better. And that's again a second point, I'd say early in your career you can again make that check, and then make an appropriate switch to the ones which you feel you can then proceed your career ahead with. So that's one thing on the actual domain. Then talking about preparing for AI and automation, right? So yeah, that's a very pertinent question again, and that's something which is very relevant in today's world. So compared to 5 years ago or 6 years ago that I had started working, right, pre-COVID era or pre-Chat GPT era, let me call it that way, right? So I guess the biggest shift that I have seen is that routine tasks are increasingly getting automated, right? So many of the tasks wherein we had a defined set of activities or defined group of people who are doing routine set of activities, I feel those are the kind of work which is increasingly getting automated. So AI is definitely making playing a big role, and it's largely taking away jobs of something which we were doing actuaries. But in true sense, and I had also for those who had attended the call yesterday, I had also talked about how AI is not going to replace the profession, but what it is actually going to do is it is actually going to filter out all those kind of work which is fairly automatable in nature, and what will remain is something which is unique to the actual profession. So things like judgment, right? Things like setting assumptions, underacting, understanding risk, connecting numbers to business outcomes. So those are the kind of work. The real actuarial work are the ones which will get filtered and then come out. So in the era of AI and automation. So students should now focus on what? So students should focus on understanding data, being comfortable with tools like Python. So that's like like how Pranav mentioned, right? So 20 years ago, knowing Excel was something which was expected of you. It was not an additional skill. So in today's world, having a coding acumen, or having a knowledge of coding or understanding coding syntax is something which you need to be comfortable with, something that the employers expect that you are aware of it once you graduate. So again, stressing upon the same point again, so students should now focus on understanding data, being comfortable with tools like Python, and most importantly, interpreting results and making decisions. Why this is becoming important? Because as I mentioned, right, many of the routine tasks are becoming automated. So what will get filtered out at the end of this entire journey of transformation, what will get filtered out is something which is very unique to Actuarial. So things like judgment, understanding the business, setting the assumptions, understanding risk, communicating with individuals, stockholder management, and all of this is what which will do. So in this era, when we are saying preparing for AI and automation, I guess these are the things which we should be focusing upon.
Yeah, that's excellent. Rohan. So just taking it little further, like to ask the view of Funny Krishna on so this transforming the world of actuarial work. No? So what do you see? Like how do you think students should prepare in the next 6 to 12 months? Like some of them are in final year, some of them are preparing to do something in the nearest future. Okay, so to maximize their chances of landing in their first actual job. So what do you think actually are the practical steps that they should take up?
I think so. Like we should divide this into two tranches. One thing is basically personal aspects, what they should learn, and then technical aspects, what they should learn. Definitely, I'll start with personal, because technical we have got very good discussions and very good suggestions from Rohan and Pranav already. So from a personal perspective, I would focus on my formula is basically, even to my team, I would say this same formula. Sir, it is 3 C's formula. The 3 C is very simple: curiosity, consistency, and communication. So curiosity is basically to ensure that the student, or actually the individual who is trying to get on to the role, or basically trying to understand the role, should go with a curious mindset. Okay, trying to understand what is being done, and also be curious about what they wanted to achieve through that role. Okay, so and then how will it help and shape the future? So but again, we can go at each tranche more deeper, sir, but curiosity and curious mindset is very important for an individual when they wanted to take that role. Consistency. So consistency is basically like, once you get that curiosity and start working on that problem, or basically trying to attempt to actually like go more deeper, your consistency is being actually seen. Because one thing is, currently, like, there are a lot of distractions, or basically like the mind shifts from one aspect to the other very frequently, due to the availability or richness of the resources from a technical perspective, as well as from a social perspective. So it's very important to be consistent, okay, and diligent with respect to what they wanted to achieve, okay, on the second tranche. Okay, the third piece is communication. Improving communication is a very important skill, because the results or the modality of the pieces has already been minimized by the new AI tools, trying to reduce our intensive labor work what we used to have. I still remember when I was working on Excel, just to ensure that creating a dashboard has been a 6-day or an 2-week activity what we used to have. Okay, but nowadays actually it can be achieved through, just by an hour, or actually like 2 hours, or let's say a complex dashboard within a half a day kind of a situation, right? So to understand and ensure that these results are communicated to the relevant stakeholder or a cross-functional team is where we add value. Okay, so understanding how to communicate is very important, and mastering the communication skill is one thing actually what the individual should think of. Okay, and trying to achieve that, the effort should be kept on achieving that particular piece. So that's my 3C formula from a personal perspective. From a technical perspective, it is a no-brainer that learning and understanding the skills. Okay, like I'll take one example. We all talk about in the current AI setup about like RAG, the retrieval augmentative generative kind of an framework, but why and how it is utilized actually with the current models. If we are trying to develop our own model, what will happen? So that intellectual curiosity will help to really excel the technical aspect. So it goes hand in hand on the personal behavioral aspects as well as the technical aspects what they need to learn. And needless to say that Actuarial gives a perspective of the real world in a very applied manner. Okay, so once we get a grip of understanding what application is trying to do and keeping us relevant through curious mindset and consistency will fetch the student the right result, be it the job or be it actually within the job, trying to excel ourselves. So that's how I see it, sir.
Can't hear you, sir.
We are unable to hear you.
Yeah, yeah. Can you hear me now? So yeah, I have some little background thing going on. That's it. So I have one pointed question for Mahadev. So Mahadev, you moved from life to GI. Okay. So tell us honestly. So why you moved? Like, what made you feel? What are the real skill related reasons that made you think like that?
Okay. So, sir, honestly, I had worked at Life for like around 3 years until then, and then I'd gotten to know, at least in the APAC region, what the kind of business that we write. I mean, I at least had a familiarity. Then I felt that maybe this is not something I'd like to focus on in the long term, which is the main reason why I made the switch. Uh, and what attracted me to PNC was it's short term. The feedback loops are generally, I mean, at least for bulk of the business, it's quite quick. There's more data. The applicability of data science techniques are higher for the most part. And also the domain is quite wide in the sense you can work on very different kind of coverages, different kinds of risks. And yeah, I felt like there's enough to keep me interested if I'm going to have a career of a few decades. I'll be very honest. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, just to like follow up on that, we also felt for a longer time, the actuarial profession was on life insurance. Mortality table is always uh, identified with the actuarial work. Okay, so now the whole part of it actually, like each time there is a innovation happening, right? So from life, then we got into investments, then general insurance was there all the time, but like actuaries were less involved in that. But now we see a tremendous amount of progress is happening in the general insurance side. But also jobs are many in multiple ways. So that is where actually we are seeing a lot of attention with respect to general insurance, and the combination of AI and data science is also coming in the way, right? So we can say in one way, like a greater innovation and also adoption of technology is happening more faster in general insurance as it's wide open. So others are yet to catch up. We're not saying they will be there only, but previously, if you ask the actuaries of previous generation, they say you're working in life, then only they consider you as an actuary. That's how they used to behave. But like now, it has gone into different areas of application, and the technology is the main piece which is being heavily utilized in the generations. So with this, we end our part of panel discussion and all the inputs that we want to provide you. Okay, from the experts who joined from Dublin, Singapore, Darjeeling, and Bangalore, right? So, so this is a great panel we had, and we thank each one of you from the point of view of the information that you brought. So, we'd like to open all questions from your end, and also any any of the suggestions or any of the uh, previous experiences or insights you had previously, that also you can share. The best way is actually you can type in the question in the chat and raise your hand. Then one of the other will pick up, and then we'll go on with that. So from the webinar point of view, yeah. So our 1 hour webinar is done, but like we want to spend as much time as possible with you all to answer each one of you, right? That is what actually we intend to do now. Okay. So I see some typing in here, and we can start asking. So we'll go with Dhruv K. Can you please unmute and then ask your question? Yeah, each one of the panelists, like, feel free to answer. Yeah. So, yeah.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dhruv, and my question is to Mr. Fani Krishna. Good morning, sir. You talked about your experience in the ALM department of insurance, and could you please explain what used to be your daily routine and your roles and responsibilities in the ALM job? Thank you.
Sure. So essentially, we have got liabilities, or which is more actually the claims getting paid, right? So, and then we have got assets through which actually the premiums are collected, and you have got bit of a regulatory restrictions to ensure that you have invested in those particular asset framework, right? So, such as like satisfying the regulatory requirements and thereby maximizing returns as a return. So these are the two key performance metrics what generally you have got, and then you try to ensure that you have got a match between them, because all liabilities will not fall on the same day. Okay, so we need to ensure that we are matching the liability relevant assets being paid. Okay, so as long as I have got a good match, okay, I have done my asset liability management well, and I submit the same actually to my regulator, to my group, as well as to ensure that I do not have or I minimized my mismatch to a greater extent. Yeah, that is my daily part of the work, as well as KPIs what I used.
Yeah, Dhruv. Hope that answers your question, right? Yeah, I see Rajat Chabra. So Rajat, please unmute and then ask your question.
Good morning, everyone. So, my question is actually for Dr. Pradav Sai. So, uh, so I already have experience with R, Python, along with clearing four actual science exams as well. And I'm looking to transition from model risk management to to a core actually domain. So, do you have any suggestions on what more skills could I develop, or anything that could land me in my first domain, actual science?
So firstly, like, it's a good job, good start, whatever you have, right? What I would say is there's not a single answer for this. That's your answer to your question, right? It depends on totally on the roles which you're applying for and what the company needs, right? But there are a few things which we can do to cover our bases. Firstly, can we see what are the other exams you want to clear, right? And I also want to tell this to all of you, right? We are not competing with ourselves, or we are not competing with the college next door or something, right? When I'm talking about competition, I'm talking about people who come from colleges who get if you just pass their bachelor's program, you get 8 papers standard without even writing. You get this what's that exemption program which they're part of. So we are trying to compete with them, right? So firstly, we need to see how we can clear more papers. Second thing over here is try to see what are the technical skills which you can do. At the moment, any actuarial role which you're talking about, right, it has become more and more technical. So try to see what are the different aspects of technicality. It's not about just you saying, hey, I can program in Python, but I would also say have you built something? Can I show you something? Okay, I'm not saying that I know Power BI, but I've done this in the past and I can show it to you, right? Can we show that provable experience? That's what they want. More than knowledge, they need experience with all these associated platforms. And the third most important thing over here is for a role, how well you are structuring your CV, especially when it's going to be one of your role shifts. For me, when I was applying for my job in Dublin, right, a recruiter saw my CV and they gave a first iteration and they said okay, there needs to be a significant change of the CV and the way I'm putting it, right? And it depends on different markets. For example, in European market, you don't put photographs, right? If you put a photograph on your CV, it's a big down. And they have their own set of things. Within 1 minute of they looking at your CV, they should know how good you are. Because in the role which we advertise for, 800 people applied, right? And significant chunk of, so they have their software that actually detects if it is an AI written CV or not. If it is AI written, however good it is, they just sideline it, firstly. And second thing is they try to see within you have 400 CVs in front of you. Within a minute, how are you going to impress me, right? So that's the important thing that your CV should capture. Be it your actuarial exams, be it your technical expertise, whatever you're building, and an associated relevant experience which you can show. If not for your former jobs, right, you can at least try to build on your own on the side, saying I picked this up, I tried to build this, and I can show it to you even during the interview. That has always worked for me.
Yeah, Rajat.
Yeah, that actually answers my question. So another thing, from the perspective of HR, so is there anything else that I could do?
Okay, I might not be the best person to answer this question because I'm little off with the Indian market right now. But if somebody else can take it, the likes of Rohan and Mahadev.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Rohan, can you add?
Yeah. So is there something very specific regarding HR that you are looking to get an answer for, Rajat?
Actually, the thing is that like some HR talk about like what experience do you have and like what are your expectations. So there's also like mismatch between what I'm looking for and what freshers are being offered. So there's also a confusion since I have 1 year of experience in model risk management, but I'm looking to transition to actual science. So that is also one thing that I'm facing currently.
Yeah, I guess so. Which focus on, as I guess Pranav already answered, that is, see, whatever job that you are looking for, right, you need to ensure that you are clear about articulating that, because many a times what happens is, at least in the Indian market, you would find lots of recruiters reaching out, or if you are reaching out to any of the recruiter, the first thing they'll ask is what is it that you're looking for. So for you to be able to articulate what exactly you want is of an essence here, Rajat. and that should also be very well reflected in the resume that you create, right? Because that becomes the starting point. Because HR understands, the HR don't understand in entirety what exactly it is, right? Most of the time they would have a set of script or a set of a document which they have referring to, and then they read it out from there, and they try to make some sense out of whatever the job requirement is, right? But I guess it becomes your responsibility as well to be able to articulate what is it that you exactly want, and take the discussion ahead from there, Rajat. So as much as the responsibility is there for the HR to get the appropriate candidate, the responsibility also lies on you to be able to articulate what is it that you are really looking for in the industry, because the industry has a lot of work, right? So for you to be able to understand what are the job descriptions, and many a times what I have also seen is, like, at least in the Indian market, the job description might be something. Okay, the job description might be something, but what actually the role requirement is might be something different altogether. That you would only understand once you get the discussion ahead forward. So the first practical approach which I can at least suggest to you is, whenever you are reaching out to HR, just try to understand what is it that the HR is describing the job about. If that fits in some way closer to whatever you're looking for, at least take the discussion forward. Get a chance to speak to your hiring manager or somebody who is actually looking for a job, who is looking to hire for that particular position, and then you will get a better understanding of what that particular role is all about. So the first thing is, get one step ahead of the HR's discussion and try to get the direct understanding from the person who is actually hiring, and then see if that matches your profile or not. And that's the point where I feel, you can really find something suitable for you. Does that make sense, Rajat?
Yes, and that actually answers my question.
Perfect. Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks, everyone.
yeah, thank you. Sai Surabhi?
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yes, sir. My question is to Dr. Rohan Yashraj Gupta, sir.
Mhm.
Sir, which domains are currently having the largest number of actuaries, and where do you see the biggest demand gaps? And what could be the factors that are causing these demand gaps to persist?
Yeah, I guess the demand is very high, Surabhi. Right? You would have seen that in the post as well, in the LinkedIn post. The current demand, as per what the Institute of Actuaries of India expects, or even the insurance regulator expects, is that the amount of work which is there in the Indian industry right now. So it requires about 25,000 actuaries, and of which we have only lesser than 1,000 actuaries in the country today. So irrespective of whichever domain you choose, Surabhi, I would say the demand is there, right? It all depends on you, what exactly your interest lies in, where exactly your interest lies in. If it could be life, it could be non-life, or it could be something very different altogether. It could be pensions, into risk management, whatever it is. One thing which you should know is demand is there everywhere. Okay. And
Yes, sir.
that you are trying to make your career choices, I feel that is not the right thing to do. One thing which you should be aware of is that there is a demand irrespective of whichever field you are in, but you might be driven by certain kind of work which a particular field or a particular domain offers. See if that aligns with you, and then you take a step ahead.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
See, it is the area which you like, that area you can pursue, right? Where actually is a skill set, so that you're taking with you. And now I like pensions, and then get into the pensions area. That itself is not only $1 billion thing, that is actually $1 trillion or even more. That's one of the largest heavily invested area. But if you look at someone with the background of liking towards the investment, stock market, that is another area where actually they can pursue in that area. Someone likes technology, where technology is adopted, they can cut across all the lines of business. So the demand is so high. So just to add to Rajat Chabra's earlier question, see, this we have to find a way how we align our expertise to the job that is actually being offered, right? So there is a mutual responsibility. So when there is the tremendous amount of the fake resumes which are going on versus actually you're having the right skill, but like you're not able to communicate that well, that's a challenge. Yeah, I understand that fully. But like because there's a huge demand, so you just need to wait because so many opportunities are coming. So while waiting, we don't need to just wait. You can actually do a lot more upskilling, so that actually you will land in a very good place. So whatever the background you have, that actually is the right path. Like how Pranos I mentioned, that's the right path. So you just trust yourself and then be there. So that actually either you find a way to attract them or they will find you. Okay, but like just put it, you need to wait for the right opportunity. So until that time, you don't need to lose the time. You can actually invest on right things. So that's what I thought I will bring it up. Yeah, Rohan.
Yeah, very good segue to a point which I wanted to also highlight on. The practical steps which the students can follow probably over the next 4 or 6 months that they in the first few jobs. I would say is that, see, focus on your exams. At least try to clear 1 or 2 exams, because that shows your commitment towards pursuing actuarial career. The second thing is work on some live projects, right? That is the only thing I feel that makes you stand apart, right, as a student, because there are lots of, as Pranav mentioned, right, there are lots of universities which has come wherein you just clear the graduation and then you are already you have 8 papers exempted or 6 papers exempted, right? So apart from the exams, what is it that is making you stand apart? It's, I guess, the life skills, the life projects that you have, something to show, right, at the interview. If you have something to show, that always is like a cherry on the top and makes your resume stand apart from the rest of the crowd. And the final thing, the third point which I'd like to mention here is that networking, right? It is very critical that you network with actuaries, get to know the industry better, and then see where the profession is heading. I feel as a practical next steps for all those students who are looking for landing their first job, then focus on clearing exams, at least 1 to 2 exams in the next 4 to 6 months. Build one live project, something which is demoable when it comes to that opportunity for you to showcase something. And the third thing is network, get to know where the industry is heading, and then make yourself upbeat with whatever the industry is demanding.
Yeah, just actually, that's exactly what they did when Rohan and Pranav, Mahadev, Funny, when they landed in their first job, that they did that actually. As time passed, actually, like in their interviews, actually, Rohan, you want to say something about your own first interview, right?
I guess, yeah, I guess that is something which we have been, which we have been actually mentored to always do, as part of preparation for interview. One thing which we always had, at least in my interviews, all the interviews that I've had till date, have worked on various companies till date, and every time one thing which I have always ensured is I have tried to find an avenue. Whenever a particular question was asked, I have found an avenue myself to be able to showcase what I have done, because that already puts the interviewer on a very comfortable stage, right? So how I see the entire interview process is in this way, right? I see it very practically. I see that if a interviewer is committed to spend 1 hour with me of their busy schedule, it already speaks a lot in my eyes. Why it speaks a lot in my eyes is because the interviewer is willing to spend that 1 hour or 30 minutes or 45 minutes is only because that interview wants to know more about me. And for me to able to crack that interview, the only thing that I should be able to impress upon the interviewer is that I am the right person for the job, right? So how can I impress upon that aspect of I am the right person for the job is to make the interviewer feel comfortable with all the skill sets that I have. And one practical way of making the interviewer comfortable about all the skill sets that I have is to able to demo. See, I'm talking about all of these skill sets. I say that, see, I have an exposure working with Python, I have an exposure working with Power BI, I have built some applications, but all those things are on paper, right? But in those 30 minutes, there is no possible way in which you can actually explain your life, of whatever you have done, all the exposure that you have done, all the exposure that you have had. So the only practical way, in my opinion, is if you have something to share your screen, so that 15 seconds, that 20 seconds, or that 1 to 2 minutes of your screen sharing, and then demoing whatever you have to the interviewer, that actually puts the interviewer on a very comfortable stage, right? Because if the interviewer is spending 1 hour with you, you are already one step ahead of all the other people. And the only thing that the interviewer is checking is whether you are suitable for that role or not. So whatever it takes for you to impress that point upon the interviewer, you should be able to do. And one good thing is you should have something to showcase to the interviewer. You should find an avenue during the entire interview process where, the interviewer gets compelled to ask you that, okay, you were mentioning about, showcasing something, can you share your screen and then showcase something? So if you come to that point in the interview, I guess that's a deal seal in my eyes. And that is something which has always worked for me. So without fail, in all the interviews that I have attended, I have always had something to demo. I have had something to showcase. And the moment I have done that, I have always, got an offer.
Yep, perfect. That's excellent. See, I understand not everyone is asking question, but like definitely these questions which were asked are representative of many of you who got that uh, question inside, right? Like these answers definitely help you to uh, get your path clear to find your first job. So, Shabana Sultana Sheikh, you have to unmute and ask your question.
Hello everyone. Hello sir.
Right.
Actually, I am a BSc Design and Computing student. Currently, I'm pursuing that degree, and I have recently got to know about this actual career path. So, what are the next steps that I could take in order to take this further or build interest in this career path?
Okay, good. So, Pranav, you want to take that question?
Yeah, thank you, Shubhana, for the question. And I'm also seeing two relevant questions in the chat as well, right? Which degree is appropriate? I'm seeing I see most of them have done BSc, MSc, and how can they transition? I've tried to cover all these questions in one answer, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Firstly, the thing we need to understand is when you're trying to come into actuarial domain, right? Previously, it was a very close-knit society, right? Actuaries and non-actuaries, there was a strong demarcation of what they were doing. Now, I've been working with the team, right? One of the main contributors for the team in the client side. He's not an actuary. He has not even cleared one paper, but he works on insurance and he knows modeling, he knows Databricks, he knows insurance in and out because of experience, right? He was, I think his degree was in some food science or something, and then in that he did some Databricks. And then this company wanted that when Databricks was first launched, and then was brought in. And then he developed the skill sets over time, and then it was very closely overlapping with the actuarial world, and then he was brought in into the actuarial team. So whatever domain you are part of, right? When you want to come into actuarial domain, you have to see if you're going to the traditional route of going through exams and everything, then that itself is a route by itself, right? Clear exams, irrespective. We know people who have not done their undergrad degree. They have not done their BSc, right? But they have done 12 actuarial exams or something, and they were landed really, really good jobs. Sir might know better. And so that's the traditional way. Write exams, you are already you'd be eligible for different actuarial roles. But if you're coming as an outsider, right? If you don't along with clearing exams, you want to do other perspectives. It totally depends on which domain you want to target. We need to have that cemented first, because we are coming from outside, right? Are we trying to go at life insurance, general insurance, or insurance audit, or what companies which are looking for, right? If you want to say I want to go into Big Four consulting, like, what are the different things that differs completely from Swiss Re hiring and actuary, right? And in that case, you're relevant. If you are coming from an outsider point of view, you would need to enhance your technical skill sets, ba- basically working on, like, tabular data that flows in, right? I know people from aeronautical side coming into actuarial because the data was pretty similar, like how to risk, like, to model risk of a flight path was very similar to the models that were used in actuarial science, right? So there was an overlap there. So it's tabular data. If you can do some number crunching, can you build some models? Okay, like, can you build some machine learning, deep learning models, or can you bring in some agentic framework? And but, like, all these models which you're building with underlying sentiment of what is a business application of it. Okay, I'm building a random forest model, but for the business line of fraud detection. It can be credit card fraud detection for a non-role, non-actuarial role, right? But if you want to come to an actuarial role, change that credit card fraud detection to claims fraud detection. Then that's what Rohan did actually. So using machine learning model is not sufficient, but trying to get an insurance specific application of, like, okay, I built some ensemble models, I built an agent, or I built whatever it is, but with the real world use case, which the actuaries might involve themselves in. That would really give you a really good start. It's not, then it would be like, okay, this person has experience more than papers, so let us bring him or her in. That's the first aspect of your question. And then people say, like, can BCom and MCom student do, or like what they need to study and everything, right? So here previously I was talking about a person whom I know did not even do BSc or bachelor's, for example. They got into actuarial. I can give you two examples of people. So this person, right? He did his BSc physics, not even BCom, imagine. BSc physics, MSc physics, and then he did his PhD, and not a normal PhD. He was working in CERN lab in Switzerland, right? And then he had this thing, like somebody told him about actuarial science. And then he was like, okay, why not? It's very close to what I'm doing. And now he pursued all the exams. He cleared SERA. And now he is actually the global head of engineering and actuarial in Aon right now. So your bachelor's would only give you one level of footpath. Like, okay, a person with a BCom knowledge can clear exams like CB1, CB2 easier compared to a BSc person. But on a flip side, right, a BSc person might clear the exams like CS1 and CS2 better, but they might, like, it might be a little challenging for them to tackle the CB's exams, right? So that it will only aid you to one extent, but it's about how you are going to build the career of your own. And I think the most interesting example was one of Sir's friend, I guess, that violinist. I remember, sir. So he was a violinist, and then she pursued actuarial science in her 40s or something, and then she became to lead the firm. So imagine. So there's no your bachelor's or your domain past history would not cement your thing. It's just an enabler. It's a catalyst, right? You can build on your own.
Yeah, perfect. See, the background, it matters only in few scenarios, because actuarial science itself is a multidisciplinary. So it can come from commerce background, economics, statistics, mathematics, applied things, any for that matter, including music. Okay, so each one brings their own specialized skill set to the table, and that particular thing can be utilized to get through the actuarial exams and application and whatever is required for them to do a job. And if you see within India, most of the students from North, they do commerce, economics to become an actuary. Most of the students from South, they do mathematics, computer science, and other things. So it's a mix of both the things, and then you find actuaries coming from both the sides, right? So the backgrounds are different, but finally they are able to reach the same destination. So sometimes I find like those who with the commerce business background, they have little edge in the later subjects than the pure mathematics people. So because the later subjects, they really they look at the understanding of the domain and other things. Whereas in the initial exams, yeah, some of the papers, like how Pranav mentioned, like at least 3 or 4 papers, they need intensive statistics background, which is anyway required for even for doing data science. So yeah, this is that cannot be escaped, yeah, either way, right? So yeah, with that, I think we answered the major appropriate degree for becoming actuary, that is from Siva Puvada. Yeah, there's nothing like that. If they what they like, if they do, that's good. Actually, that's what we really tell. If a person likes music, that's good. If a person likes economic, that's good. But it all depends. But finally, actuarial exams are complete on their own. That means actually, irrespective of whatever, even if they study, it's not going to be really helpful from that point of view. They have to, if the academic level is in the scale of 0 to 10, if it is 2, the actual exam is sitting anything above 6 to 10, right? So this is a very different level altogether. Degree helps to bring the environment, but like beyond that, it doesn't provide, it doesn't matter actually if they are doing what type of degree, but as long as they do their actual exams in a right way, and whatever course whichever is coming in their way, that particular thing, they should align well with that. That's the point we see. And we have people from all walks. That's the thing. Government recently announced. So actuarial actuaries involved in data science, that is always there in multiple ways, because we do data science, we use it as a tool initially, like, but afterwards actually we'll utilize it like any other data scientist. Countries like Malaysia and other places where the actuarial the companies are limited, and then actuarial jobs are limited. So most of the students, once they complete actuarial, they join the data science. So there's slight, only the small line is there between these two. It's not very different. The application is into the intensive risk management. That is what is happening in the actual. So that is the question Achaya asked, and that Kameshwari's question already Pranav answered, and that it doesn't matter. Like you'll be having advantage in some papers. That's what you can take it up. Then, if you want to start a journey from layman terms, yeah, you should start with the first few papers, which are actually very basic, the financial mathematics and the probability statistics. After that, actually, it forms the path on its own. It's a foolproof thing. It's a 200 years old profession, so nothing new we are doing. Basically, what we are doing is actually with the change in the technology and innovation, how we are evolving. That's what is changing, rather than the profession is on its own very stable, and there are highest standards by each professional body. So that is where we suggest just follow the path, and then the networking is also important, be part of the things which will help you immensely. So with that, I think we are going to close this session. Dhruv, you have a last question?
Yeah, so I had a two-part question. First one is that, as you mentioned, that's a really old profession. So the question is that, are the foundational methodologies of pricing and reserving, etc., changing? For example, we've seen that GLM was used quite frequently. So is it like after the arrival of modern ML algorithms, etc., are you like changing how you used to price the products, etc.?
Okay.
And second is, if you could also tell us something about what a fresher should, present as a project. Any idea on that? Thank you.
Okay. So the first one is, see, what you can do, that only you will put it as a possibility, right? When we started pricing motor and decades back, we were having only univariate modeling. That means actually one single thing only I can change, then find out what happens. There was no capability from the computing or systems or any methodology that is built. Though they had the intention to use multivariate, that was not possible, right? Then they developed multivariate, and then the external world also became ready. Then we started using multivariate analysis. Then we got into a newer world like actual data science and machine learning brought neural network, brought some more capabilities. Then AI is bringing from unstructured data how you can actually get into the structured way and then derive some insights from there. So what is driving is not just what you intend to do. Okay, what is driving is actually what is happening outside world also. Okay, so which we can use as actuaries as tools. Like if we don't want to use, then those what will happen is those companies or those actuaries will stay behind and others will take over and then keep moving. So whole world won't stop for somebody who doesn't want to take it up, right? So through the answer is when the outside world is ready, we transform, right? GLM was the best because that time or whatever tools and other things were there, you were able to do that, whatever you could do. Though actually you type in what are the disadvantages of using GLM for certain thing because they are not linearized models. If it is not a linear model, then you want to use it for doing something, then that itself is a flaw, right? So for learning the thing, you learn in ideal situation. For applying things, you are not going to apply because the real world is entirely different from what you learn in ideal situation. So if you look at any of the CS1, CS2 thing, there is a big thing called set of assumptions, right? Then so you need to know that under those conditions only that formula is applicable. When you really apply in real life, you find nothing of those things are actually applicable. So that means you cannot throw away the formula, but you have to learn in a structured way. So you need to put the assumption after that. So exactly the same way. Okay, that is the first thing. Did it answer your question? Yeah, perfect. Then the second one, what we should show. So Pranav, maybe you know what he showed, right? Every time as part of. So firstly, doing the project. Without doing the project, there is nothing to show, right? So that is number one. But like what to show, how to show, that is the part actually. Definitely, like Rohan excelled in that. Pranav also did because he moved one place to other place, country to country with the expertise in hand, right? So Pranav, over to you to answer that.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So, as I was saying, two-phase approach, right? One is what you want to show, right? You want to build agent, or build agent. You want to build a dashboard, you build a dashboard. You want to show some Python skills, show Python skills, right? So depending on whatever is relevant, that would be better. Like, you can build something in Excel as well. Like, but like in the modern world, like what is the best thing which you can show? Like, for example, right now, agentic AI is going, right? Can you build an agent and can you show it in action, right? So that's the first thing. Whatever skill sets you think would give you the niche over the others, that can be the ones which you can target. Like, building an ML DL model, or you want to build something like a comprehensive Power BI dashboard. That's also pretty good. So that's the first aspect of it. Can be anything technical which you can show. The second thing is the flavor of business problem, right? Now, you're not just saying that you can build something, but you're saying that I found a relevant business problem to which I'm using the tool which I built. That's the most important thing. In actuarial world, technology is abundant, but they still have this big question mark of where to use what. Right? So you can build even a framework to say, okay, sir, in these situations, I can use these, or I've done a comprehensive analysis of different LLMs, right? Wow. In what cases GPT models are better? In what cases Anthropic models are better? OpenAI and Anthropic or Gemini, right? One does one better, one aspect better. You can even build a report instead of even showing something, right? So you try to tackle your technical stack which you want to develop. And the second thing is try to bring the domain expertise for the role which you're applying for. If you're applying for an insurance specific role, bring in insurance examples. Say that I've not just built an agentic application, I've built an agentic application to perhaps let me give an example. If you are applying in a non-life sector, right, you have built an agent that can analyze the impact of crash of a car in its image. Like, if somebody uploads an image of a car that has been damaged, it can, detect the model, the the cost estimate, and depending on which country they are. In India, the spare parts and the repair work cost significantly different from some other country, right? A multi-agent framework that can do all these three, and that can give you a cost estimate of the predicted damage of the car. So here I'm not just building an agent, but I'm bringing an insurance flavor of claims handling. So that's the answer. First aspect is try to see whatever technical aspects you want to show, and the second thing is bring in an insurance flavor, and that worked for me a lot. During the interview, I'd be like, okay, do you have any final questions? They might ask, right? That's the standard template of any interview. The time I'd be like, I'm like, whatever questions I have, and I'd be like, okay, we have 2 minutes. I have built also something, whatever I've been saying, and I share my screen and I show this, and that actually cements the credibility of our thing. Instead of me saying why are we even clearing an actuarial exam, right? We can be good with the course which we are doing in our college, but we are bringing in the credibility to say that in an external environment conducted by a global actuarial body, my understanding is good that I can actually clear that exam. And that's a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Instead of you saying what are the different aspects of financial mathematics, you say I've cleared the financial mathematics paper. That's enough. Everything else is taken care of. But that's what we want to address, because the time limit is limited for your interview. It's half an hour, 1 hour, or whatever. So yeah,
That's correct. So yeah, with this we end today's webinar. Yeah, quite a lot of interaction and a good number of participants and the great insights from the panelists. Yep, nothing better than this can happen at this stage for students who are taking up actuarial exams and then looking for their first job. So most of us, we never had such a facility to have such an interaction. So that is one of the reasons why really we thought we bring it up to you and then get a real feel of how to go about with the people who have achieved in the recent times, right? So it should be relevant. That is why we thought the younger generation, which is very close to you, they speak to you directly, so that you get a real hands-on feeling, and also in multiple continents they represent. So with that, we say thank you all for joining, and we will be having one more session. So for the next Sunday. So these Sundays are utilized for the purpose of enhancing your knowledge, not just from the books, from the people who have been doing exactly in that way. So whatever feedback you want to provide, there's a link actually which we have kept on LinkedIn post. You can directly post there, and then we can take it from there. And also the future webinars, you please register from your end. We'll be sharing the new LinkedIn post by next 2-3 days, and then from there we go, right? So with that, so we close this session. Thank you.